Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are diving into an absolute masterclass in pitching. We're going to deconstruct exactly how creator Claudia D. Reid packages her epic 5-season prestige thriller, Blood on the Deeds. We'll track the whole journey, right from her incredibly tight, industry-standard loglines, all the way to her full, multi-platform rollout strategy. If you've ever found yourself wondering how to take a massive, complex narrative universe and present it clearly to the industry, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get right into it.
So we're going to kick things off with this powerful core philosophy straight from Reid's writer statement. Notice how instantly, literally before we even know a single thing about the plot, she establishes the massive emotional stakes of the world she's built. She's not just giving us a play-by-play of what happens, she's telling us exactly why it matters. It's about land, it's about legacy, and crucially, it's about the people who just refuse to disappear.
Section 1. The core pitch. Hooking the industry.
Okay, so if you're pitching on a major industry platform like the Blacklist, you know they demand really specific, strict formats. You've got to start with a punchy one-sentence logline. Hers is, when a beloved Queens Village banker is murdered and staged as a suicide, a tea shop owner uncovers a century-old land theft conspiracy. Bam! It's clean, it's fast, and it gives us the inciting incident and our protagonist right off the bat. But look at the expanded post-logline. Reid uses those extra couple of sentences not just to repeat herself, but to seriously escalate the context. She weaves in these intense details about foreclosure crews, forged deeds, political corruption, and the assembly of an unlikely team ready to dismantle this massive dynasty. It is a textbook example, for sure, of how you expand a hook without losing its absolute sharpness.
And man, that brings us to this brutally effective line right out of her film Freeway synopsis. What begins as a fight for one man becomes a war for an entire community. I mean, how evocative is that? This single sentence perfectly bridges the gap between the high-stakes specific murder plot, the fight for one man, and the deep thematic resonance of the entire series. It essentially makes a promise to the reader that the scope of this story is going to continually explode outward.
Section 2. Expanding the narrative from plot to theme.
Now, let's look at how the synopsis strategically layers these escalating elements. We aren't just thrown into a vast, faceless conspiracy right away. We start with something super grounded and personal, the staged suicide of a beloved local banker in Queens Village. From there, our protagonist starts digging, uncovering the truth behind stolen deeds and forged records. Then, we learn about entire erased families. And finally, the whole thing culminates in the birth of a covert resistance. By organizing the pitch exactly this way, Reid is showing us how a single suspicious death spirals completely out of control into this massive fight against a modern operation that's literally designed to wipe a community right off the map.
Which leads us perfectly into how she defines her genre. And honestly, this is so smart. She calls it a prestige conspiracy thriller. She's expertly blending the high-stakes, shadowy, institutional corruption of a classic thriller with the incredibly grounded, character-driven elements of a community drama. By pinpointing her project right at this specific intersection, Reid positions her show perfectly for modern, sophisticated audiences. You know the ones. Viewers who crave that high adrenaline truth but demand real emotional weight behind it. She is clearly signaling to the industry the exact shelf this show belongs on.
Section 3. The Writer's Vision. Who is Claudia D. Reid?
What's absolutely fascinating here is how the pitch brilliantly shifts focus away from the fictional world and directly onto the real-world architect behind it. She writes, "As a former business consultant, I understand how systems operate. As a storyteller, I understand how people survive them." Talk about a magnificent use of a writer's statement, right? Reid is leveraging her actual real-life background in business consulting to lend absolute authenticity to a story about systemic banking corruption and land theft. She's essentially telling the industry, look, I know exactly how the bad guys hide the money, and I know exactly how to write the people who fight back.
Further grounding her thriller in reality, she highlights her own upbringing in Queens Village, where she witnessed this kind of community resilience firsthand. She's incredibly focused on exposing buried histories and institutional failures. Really, she frames Blood on the Deeds not just as an entertaining thriller to binge on a Friday night, but as a deeply personal love letter to the endurance of her native Queens Village. And that's the kicker. This proves she isn't just qualified to write a show, she's practically the only one who can write this exact show.
Section 4. A multi-season slate. Building the brand.
Okay, here is where things get super impressive. Reid isn't just pitching one single script. She's pitching a full-blown multi-season world.
Under her brand Claudia Reid Writes, she maps out Blood on the Deeds as her prestige thriller, but then she places it right alongside a mythic community drama called Queen's Village, a dark comedy pilot named The Krusty Crucifixion, and a feature film Lemon Man and Sunrise Bites. She's walking into the room and telling executives, hey, I have a massive library ready to go. It proves she is absolutely not a one-hit wonder. She's a creator with a wildly expansive vision spanning multiple genres. And the real proof of that dedication? 10. That is an absolutely astonishing 10 fully realized seasons already completed across her 2 original worlds. We aren't talking about a rough first draft here. This is a deeply developed library born from years of private notebooks and serious late-night discipline. She is bringing a polished, robust universe to the table, and it showcases immense dedication to her craft before she even steps foot inside a pitch room.
Section 5. The rollout strategy, from notebooks to the industry.
So how do we get from notebooks to the industry? Well, she follows a super deliberate 4-step blueprint. First, she releases the pilot on Script Revolution, instantly making it accessible to readers. Next, she builds an active industry footprint and network over on Stage 32. Then she establishes her professional credits on IMDb. And finally, she cultivates a direct, supportive audience through Patreon. This step-by-step rollout provides an incredibly fantastic template for any independent creator out there looking to establish a multi-platform footprint for their own original series.
Then, she caps off her launch announcement with this brilliant little promise. More updates coming soon. The rollout has just begun. By publicly framing her Script Revolution pilot launch as merely the starting line, Reid is generating incredible momentum. It's like she's sending up a flare, signaling to her audience and the industry that she is an active, forward-moving force. She's definitely not just dropping a script and walking away. She is actively campaigning her universe and building some serious traction.
Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative question for you. What buried histories will your own stories unearth? As you start crafting your own slate, try to think like Claudia D. Reid. Tap into your unique expertise, leverage your own professional background, and use your distinct voice to build a world that simply demands to be seen. The blueprint is sitting right here in front of us. Now it's your turn to start building. Thanks so much for joining me on today's Explainer, and I'll catch you next time.